I'm Lael Wilcox. I'm an ultra-distance cyclist, and I'm here to answer your questions. There you go.
Good.
Okay. On most days, would you rather ride alone or with a buddy? Probably a 50-50 split for that. What's the dumbest way you've gotten injured? Working at a restaurant, I got a serious Achilles injury from going up and down the stairs. Too many times. Week off starts tomorrow. Where do you go? What do you do? Ooh, definitely for a bike ride. I'm heading down to Tucson, and then I would just ride there for the week. What sport would you like to be better at? Basketball for sure. It's like the best. Vacation house in the mountains or on the beach? Definitely in the mountains. Can you drive a stick shift? I can't drive any cars at all. Zero.
Because you don't have a license?
I actually do have a license from Key West, Florida, but I just got it to be a pedicab driver, like the bicycle taxi, rickshaw thing. So I practiced for an hour, took the test, they passed me, and then as soon as I passed, I was like, I'm never driving again. And I mean, I've driven maybe 4 hours since. That's it. And that was in 2008. So yeah. What's the most useless talent you have? Really good at juggling sticks. Those little kind of like devil sticks. Really good. Well, I can't juggle. It's like those two batons with like the little, like you can do like twirl it around, like circus style. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It was like 10 and somebody had one at a fair and I just obsessed. Any of this stuff I would just obsess over. It's like the juggling sticks or juggling a soccer ball, really good at that. Like all these weird little skills, I would just like stay by myself for like 10 hours practicing. What has been your most emotionally challenging race or effort? I've had a few. Arizona Trail time trial in 2015, I had to drop out because I had serious breathing problems. I probably put myself in the most pain doing a time trial on the Baja Divide in 2017, like serious pain for days. And the first time I raced the Tour Divide, I actually rode myself to the emergency room in Helena, Montana. But I got better, so I could continue, so that was still like a triumph, but it was a really miserable week to get there. Like really, like breathing through a little coffee straw. At the time too, the doctor was like, he's like, when's your race start again? And I'm like, well, it's still going. I'm just like watching the clock, and I was like there for 2 hours, but I was kind of like, well, I don't know if I'm even gonna get to continue, because he took an x-ray to make sure I didn't have pneumonia. He's like, if you have pneumonia, you have to quit. I didn't, I just had like really cloudy lungs. They're like, you have the lungs of like a 75-year-old. And then he was like, well, I'd recommend that you stop riding, but I think you're probably gonna keep going, so if it gets worse again, just stop. And then I continued on. I had like another week of riding. I broke the women's record that run by 2 days. But then I finished and I was like, well, I could have done so much better. And I obsessed over it. It was like, so then 2 weeks later, I was going back to the start line again to ride the whole thing again. So the race was in June, I went back in August. I rode myself to the start from Alaska both times. By the end, I calculated I rode 8,600 miles in less than 3 months. What's your favorite post-epic meal or treat? I'm really big on ice cream. That would be it. Or pre-race meal. It's like 2 big ice creams. What movie makes you cry? So many. Too many. Like basically any movie I watch on the airplane, I'm just sobbing. And that's like the worst. I don't know, there's something about the airplane, you're just so emotional. And then it's embarrassing, you're sitting there like. Have you ever hallucinated on the bike? I've never really hallucinated, but I've started it's like seeing things moving. It's like the actual thing that's there, it's like a rock, but it's like kind of moving or kind of moving towards me. That's kind of when I realize I'm getting pretty red on the sleep zone. Yeah, like motion where there actually isn't any motion. What's the most beautiful place you've biked? Probably Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan, Switzerland, or Corsica. I'd probably do those 3. If you could go bikepacking with one famous person, who would it be? Ooh, somebody really funny. Man, these just got hard all of a sudden. What the heck? I don't know, I just watched Wine Country. I think any of the women in that would be good. So funny. And like somebody kind of out of shape would be funny. Oh my God, it would totally be Oprah for who I would go bike packing with. That would probably be the best. Ellen's too like hip and agile. I think Oprah would be better. I don't know, but who cares? It's Oprah bikepacking. Black licorice, hell yes or hell no? You know, I'd probably skip it now. I ate a ton of it. I was an exchange student in Denmark, and that's like their candy. And it's salty too. It's like big salt crystals on like super hard, like black licorice discs. I'm like, who would want this? Most underrated piece of gear for cycling. I just got this year a pair of down pants, and that was probably the best like improvement to my full kit, was just having down pants. And I rode in them all the time. I slept in them. They were like my like sweatpants, you know, but kept me so warm, and they pack so small. So that I didn't know what I was missing. What's your favorite unconventional thing to eat or drink during long rides? I'm really big on milk. That's like probably, if possible, my main food group during long rides. And it used to be chocolate milk, and I kind of got burnt out on that, so now it's just like whole milk. Yeah, it's kind of gross.
I mean, how do you store your milk?
Well, so that's the thing. It's like when I get food, or if I have to go buy food, I'll just get like a liter of milk and drink it really fast and then keep going. It's really hard on the stomach, but it's so good for your legs. It's like the best thing you can do for your legs. And then you don't have to carry it. And then you don't have to eat for like 2 hours. It's great. Whiskey or tequila? Whiskey. Probably Canadian whiskey because it's really cheap. One time you were scared on the bike. I got really paranoid on the bike riding from Alaska to Banff the first time for the Tour Divide. I rode this 300-mile stretch called the Highway of Tears because all these women have been abducted from this road. And there are all these like public service boards all over it showing like she went missing and she went missing. And so I rode this, and I had no idea until I got there that I got on this road, and I was just like, this is just kind of creepy, like the feeling of this road. And then I start seeing these signs, and then people start asking me, they're like, do you know this is the Highway of Tears? And I was like, is that a good thing? I mean, I didn't know what it was. And then they're explaining what it is to me, and they're like, you know, telling me about people finding bodies in fields and like really creepy. And then I was like, the more I rode it, the more paranoid I got. And I was riding like about 100 miles a day. So I was out there for like 3 days on this road by myself. So I was just like camp on the side of the road. And then by the end of it, I was actually like, you know, I was like, I'm getting off this road. I'm just gonna keep riding until I get off it. And I ended up in this crazy lightning storm where it was just like pouring rain, thunder and lightning. And like, there are these big trucks like driving, and they're like throwing water over me on my bike. Like you couldn't see anything. So I'm like, well, this is super dangerous. So I was like, I bet I actually have to get off this road. But I'd been like gripping my bars, like I'm not getting off this road, I don't care. And I was like, well, I actually have to stop. So I stopped at this like trailer park, and they had like a little cafe, and I went in there, and I was like, as soon as I walked in, these women were just like, what happened? And I was like, oh, I'm just riding my bike, and I'm just gonna warm up for 5 minutes, and then I'm going back out there. And they like brought me a towel, like a bath towel, and then they're like gave me quarters to dry my clothes in the dryer. And I was like trying to turn the sink on just to warm up my hands, and I couldn't even like turn the knob. My hands were so numb. I was like, you know, and then I end up like, it's still storming, it's gonna storm all night, and there's this guy in there with like no teeth. He was wearing like a construction vest. He's like eating a hot dog, and they're like, oh, that's old John. He may look rough, but he's a real nice guy. And he ended up like giving me his trailer for the night. And I slept there, but I was still paranoid because I'm like, well, I'm on the Highway of Tears, and I'm staying at this toothless man's trailer. And so I like barricaded the door with my bike. And like the only like protection, I had like a little can of like mosquito repellent, and I was like sleeping with it, and I was like, I'll just spray him in the face. if he comes in. Because I didn't have anything. But anyway, he was like, he told me, he was like, well, I'll just come back in the morning and take you to breakfast and you can be on your way and it's not supposed to be storming. And that's exactly what happened. You know, he like set me up so I could watch DVDs and came back at like 9 the next morning. We had coffee and I rode away. And I was like, well, I guess I should actually trust people. Like this was actually like my worst experience ever, you know, as far as like paranoia and all this stuff. And it worked out fine. So, and like people would ask me questions like, oh, where are you going? And I feel like I had to lie to them. I'd be like, oh, I'm just going to my friend's house down the street. No, I'm not. I'm riding to Banff. I'm not even like within 1,000 miles of my destination, you know? Yeah, exactly. I had like a spot tracker and I was like showing Toothless John. I was like, this is my emergency tracker. If I push this button, people will come find me.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what else am I supposed to do? And then I'm like sleeping with my mosquito repellent and my spot tracker. Like, I'm ready. That's all I had. What's your favorite candy? This year, probably Snickers. That's like mostly what I survived on in Kyrgyzstan for the race. Lots of Snickers. They're good. I used to not like them, and then I was like, wow, this is like the best thing I could find. It was that and fried bread. Oof. What book are you reading right now? I've been listening to Lonesome Dove audiobook. Yes. So good, so good. The book is 40 hours audiobook. I actually listened to the whole thing racing. It's so good. We're just starting to listen to it again. Best guess, how many unread emails are in your inbox right now? Well, does that count like weird spam stuff, or is it just like legit, you need to get back?
I say legit.
Legit? Oh, probably a dozen. What's your biggest cycling pet peeve? I guess like when my equipment starts, like when it's not as fresh, like the shifting isn't as good or the brakes aren't as good, it starts just really irritating me. Well, because I ride my bikes into the ground, and then I look at them like after 5,000 miles, and I'm like, oh, that crusty bike.
You should be ashamed of
Yeah, it's just like, oh,
What you've done, dude.
you know, it's like I never want to see it again. And then somebody like totally freshens it up, and then I'm like, oh, I love this bike. But because I'm also a terrible mechanic, so it just gets worse and worse. That's it.